Welcome to episode 92 of the Cycling Europe podcast. My name is Andrew Sykes, and if you've heard or just listened to episode 91, you'll know exactly what this is going to be about. I'm in Ouistreham in northern France, and I'm going to be cycling the route of la Vélo Francette, which is a route that stretches from Ouistreham on the north coast, on the English Channel, all the way down to La Rochelle on the Atlantic coast. It's about 610 kilometres. It's an inland route, so we're not going to be following the coast. We're going to be heading due south from Ouistreham, and I'm going to be travelling with Tim Sanders, who you would have heard again in the previous podcast. And we've just arrived in Ouistreham. Weather is not looking brilliant. Did think I was going to have a week, 10 days, 2 weeks of blue skies in France, but that hasn't happened so far. We're at the very end of the Vélo Francette, and we're going to head, well, first of all into Caen, which is just a few kilometres south, and then we're going to continue south over the course of the next week, 10 days. Now, if I look at the map, it's going to take us to Domfront, which I visited back in 2022. Looking forward to that, great campsite. Continue south to Angers, Saumur, where I used to work many years ago, and then further south to Niort before heading west and linking up with La Rochelle. And the plan is to get there, well, at the latest on Friday of next week, which gives us about nine and a half days to get there. And from that point, the plan is to catch a train all the way back up to the north coast at Saint-Malo, where we've got a ferry booked for the bank holiday Monday. That's the bank holiday in August. So that's the plan over the course of the next few days. And this episode of the Cycling Europe podcast is going to be all about me and Tim cycling la Vélo Francette. Est-ce que vous avez une carte pour suivre la Vélo Francette?
Oui, j'ai celle que vous avez vue derrière vous, c'est la mienne.
Ah oui, ok. On est en quel département ici?
Le Calvados.
Calvados, ok. Et ça continue jusqu'où?
C'est toute la carte que vous voyez là.
Ah oui, ok, jusqu'à... Ah oui, ok.
Mais non, en fait, après...
Right, we've been going about 20 kilometres. We've just cycled through Caen, and I remembered that I'd actually spent a week living there. I'd completely forgotten about that on a school trip back in 2013. But anyway, that was my lapse of memory. We stopped for something to eat, or at least I did, and also at the supermarket in the town centre. Now, those of you who heard the previous podcast would have heard Tim. So Tim's with me again. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Hello, thank you. Right. How do you feel our ride is going so far? 20 kilometres in?
Yeah, it's going well. Everything has been reasonably well sized.
Bonjour. I mean, good routes, and it's all been, I think, almost exclusively off-road so far.
It's well surfaced. In town there were a lot of tree routes that made it quite bumpy.
Very well signposted.
Yes.
Just like the Vélo Maritime was yesterday and this morning. You can't really, if you go wrong, it's really your fault, isn't it? Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And lots of cyclists as well. Clearly lots of touring cyclists. We tend to see the ones who are heading in the opposite direction, of course.
Yeah. Approaching the ferry port, there were lots, not surprisingly.
But even on this stretch now, we've just passed.
We've seen quite a few, yeah.
And I suppose we've pinpointed a campsite just to the south of Caen. Well, I think it's about 10-15 kilometres south, and it's called Le Camping Le Bout de la Ville, which, for those of you who don't speak French, means the campsite at the edge of the town.
And we're just about to go over an old railway bridge.
Yeah. But everything around me here smacks of disused railway line that has been turned into a voie verte. Although I think for the time being we are actually following the route of the Orne River, aren't we?
Yeah.
But then again, it's not unsurprising because lots of railway tracks follow in the same direction as rivers. So next stop, le camping, le bout de la ville. There's been a slight sting in the tail of the day, and that is that when we arrived at the campsite, bonjour, when we arrived at the campsite that we were planning on staying at, which we hadn't reserved, outside it said complet. Now normally if you're a cyclist and you turn up and it says complet, they usually find a corner of land for you to pitch your tent on, and it's not a problem. But we waited and eventually found the owner. She came out and was very apologetic, but I think she'd already kind of used up her space, extra space, with people who'd already turned up, and she was saying how busy it was along the greenway, along the Vélo Francette, and she was very apologetic, but she really couldn't accommodate us, which is a problem. But what she did do, she did telephone a nearby campsite, nearby as in about 18 kilometres further along the Vélo route, and she's reserved a pitch for us to stay there, which is very kind of her. But it does obviously mean that we've got another 3/4 of an hour, bonjour, at least of cycling. But she did say it's flattened. Well, so far it's actually been pretty downhill, which is quite nice along the disused railway line that we've been following for much of the day since leaving Caen. So hopefully we should have a campsite by 6:30, but it is worth us perhaps reflecting on the fact that these campsites are going to be busy and we might need to book in advance for the remainder of the trip. I was going to say those are the sounds of a nice peaceful campsite in Normandy, but I dare say you can also hear the car. Anyway, it is a wonderful campsite that we found. We grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat last night. The woman had rung ahead at the first campsite we tried. She was very apologetic, like I just said, and we arrived at the second campsite, which is called Camping le Traspy, Traspy. It's in a great setting, very wooded setting, in a valley, great facilities, and a nice free camping area where you can pitch your tent, and a few other cycle tourists here as well. So it was a relief to arrive here last night. We ate on the campsite and then had a good night, well, a relatively good night's sleep. So the plan today is to head south, continue heading south. If I'm honest, yesterday it got a bit boring on that disused railway line. It didn't seem to ever be ending, so I'm hoping for a bit of change, and I suspect the route will change today, because this is La Suisse Normande, which everybody says is very hilly, so I'm expecting some hills to climb today. We're going to ring ahead to try and book the campsite at Domfront. Stayed there in 2022. Brilliant site, only €4. Perhaps they put the prices up, but that's the plan for today. But it is 76 kilometres, so we need to have a good day of cycling. But the weather's looking very promising. Blue sky, good temperature already. I dare say it's going to be a hot one. We've done about 13-14 kilometres, and we've just left the railway line, which is a relief. We've been on that railway line for the best part of a day, and it can get a bit tedious. It's nice and flat and easy cycling, uphill, downhill, good surface, but problem is, or one of the problems is, that you don't know where you are, because you don't tend to pass through towns and villages. So you're never really 100% sure as to how far you've actually travelled. And the good news, however, is that we're now off the railway line, and we're in the back roads of Normandy. The other good news is the fact that I did manage to ring the campsite this morning in Domfront and book us in for tonight, which is a relief and a weight off our minds, so there'll be no repetition of turning up tonight and having to then cycle another 20 kilometres to another campsite. So Domfront, here we come. It is very, very pretty. You can see why they call it La Suisse Normande. It's just really beautiful green landscape, wooded. If I was on Destination X and they asked me to guess where I was, I would probably never say Normandy. Say somewhere else instead. Certainly somewhere a lot hillier. And that's going to be the challenge for today, the hills. Nothing as strenuous as the Alps, but there are certainly going to be hills involved. But when you've got nice scenery to look at, who cares? Bonjour. Je peux avoir un sandwich normand, s'il vous plaît. Et un carré aux amandes. Aussi, merci. That's a boulangerie, that pâtisserie that should win awards. Oh, you should see what I bought. It is. That will feed me for weeks. Well, we had a few route issues for the first time. We paused for lunch at a nice little spot called Pont d'Ouy, and it was there really that the Suisse Normande was supposed to kick in. Now, on my overview map of France, there were two possible routes that the Vélo Francette followed, the V23 it's known as, and the spectacular one is further to the east by the looks of it, but inadvertently we started following the one to the west. I don't think Tim's too bothered about that. I think he was suffering a bit after this morning, but it does mean that we've missed out the spectacular bit of La Suisse Normande, which is a pity, but there we go. Onwards. In the end, we were saved by some gaswork deviation that took us off that road and sent us east. And actually, I managed to persuade Tim that we should continue cycling east until we met the branch of the Vélo Francette that we'd inadvertently abandoned a bit earlier in the day, so it turned out okay. That said, I think we probably did miss out on the most spectacular bits of La Suisse Normande, and it is, I think, going to extend our day. I'm predicting probably 80-85 kilometres, and we're now on the final stretch down to Domfront. I have history with Domfront. I stayed there back in 2022 as part of the Grand Tour around France, and it has an excellent municipal campsite. Very good value as well. It cost me €4 back in 2022. I'm intrigued to know how much it will cost me tonight, but we have booked a place, as I mentioned earlier. So the sun is shining, the cycling is relatively easy in the late afternoon sun, and well, all is well. Right, Tim, we've arrived at Campine Domfront, and the good news is that it's still very cheap and also very good. The price has rocketed from €4 in 2022 to €5 in 2025. However, we got it a bit cheaper for some reason. It came out as under €5 because we're travelling together, and he charged us €9.60, I think. Anyway, who knows, but it's very cheap and very good, so top recommendation, come here. How did you find today?
Today was definitely harder work. I didn't sleep brilliantly yesterday. We did the extra K. We did about 17 extra km, maybe even 20 last night. But on the other hand, we probably wouldn't have made it to Domfront if we hadn't done that. So
Yeah.
This is by far the quietest site of the 3 that we've been to so far.
Yeah.
There's no road noise like there was last night.
Yeah.
The first one on the coast was quite heaving with people, but no one was particularly loud.
Well, this one is just perfect for cyclists
Yeah.
because it's basically at the bottom of the campsite. There is a big field, and that's where everybody is. And basically, I don't know whether they ever get to the point where they say, nope, we can't accommodate you, because you could potentially have 100 people with their bikes on this area, couldn't you?
I mean, it's barely a third full, the bike
So
camping area.
this is an excellent site. Now, we've done 80 kilometres today, which is probably more than we envisaged, but that was, as we've already talked about throughout the day, we did take I'm not convinced we did take the wrong route. We just took an alternative route, and then we got to that deviation, then we lurched back to the original route, which I was quite happy about, because it meant we got to see a bit more of the spectacular area of La Normandy, Suisse, but it did seem to add extra kilometres to what we did.
It does seem that there are slightly different routes for the Vélo Francette, in that I downloaded one from the website.
Well, I was using the website itself, just the live website, and I think I'm going to continue using that because that was easy to use. I mean, we are in France and there's a mobile signal everywhere, so it's not difficult to use, and even it seemed to kind of memorise the map even when I was in a dodgy area for the signal.
I must say, I think the route that we did towards before Flare, that was flatter. In that, rather than going up and over and admiring the views, we were in a valley.
That's my one regret, that we didn't get to that point where there's a famous picture on the website where you're looking out over this gorgeous view from on high, and that was in the bit that we missed, which is a shame, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's certainly a very beautiful area.
It's not too late for you to have a go at that on
I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to turn around and go back up there. So anyway, so that's today. So a long day. Now we do need, probably both of us, a shorter day tomorrow. Have you had a chance to look at the map yet?
Not yet, no.
Because the next stage on the map, or the next stage on the website, is to go from where we are now, which is Domfront, down to Mayenne, and it is listed as being 50 kilometres, and I think that would be perfect. It is a lot flatter, I think, than what we experienced and could have experienced if we'd gone the right way today.
On the route I have, which is not necessarily the routes on the website, a lot of it does appear to be on ex-railway line. Yeah,
again, the first bit and the last bit certainly are. There's a little bit in the middle that seems to be not, but I would imagine it's going to be fairly flat. I mean, disused railway lines, they're good and they're easy to cycle along.
But you don't see much.
No, you don't see much, and they can get a bit tedious and boring. So I do like to mix them up, but I think there's going to be fewer and fewer of them as we keep heading south to La Rochelle. I've also been looking at campsites, and there is what looks online to be an excellent campsite just in the northern suburbs of Mayenne. I've tried calling them, but again I had the same problem that I did yesterday with my phone. It doesn't seem to want to connect, so I've actually sent you the phone number on WhatsApp, and tomorrow morning we'll do what we did today. and we'll phone them just to kind of reassure us.
Yeah, for reasons we don't know. My phone works and yours doesn't, but
Yeah. Now the other thing that could be a fact tomorrow is a bank holiday in France, 15th of August. Will that mean that the campsites are very, very busy? Who knows?
could this be the first wild camp?
Well, yeah, or hotel. Yeah. Right, so that is the plan for tomorrow. So weather's picked up, blue sky. I think it's going to continue like that for the rest of the, hopefully for the rest of the holiday. It's certainly forecast. So yeah, tomorrow is day 3, and hopefully we'll see us arrive in day 4. Is it? No, day 3.
Today's day 3.
Is it? No, today's day 2 on the Vélo Francette.
Okay.
It's day 3 of our trip, but it's day 2 on the Vélo Francette. So tomorrow will be day 3 on the Vélo Francette, and hopefully we'll be in Mayenne by the end of the day.
Bonjour, vous êtes bien sur le répondeur téléphonique du camping du Glyph-à-les-Mers à Mayenne. L'accueil est ouvert de 8h30 à midi et de 14h à 17h30. Si vous n'arrivez pas à nous joindre, n'hésitez pas à nous rappeler dans quelques minutes. Merci beaucoup.
There's a chill in the air this morning. Blue sky everywhere, but there's a bit of a breeze and it's a bit chilly. But anyway, hoping it will be a bit less chilly and a bit less windy once we get off the hill upon which Domfront has been built. It's quite an imposing position overlooking the countryside. There's a ruined chateau here. I'm standing in front of the neoclassical town hall, which is very pretty, next to the fountain that you can probably hear. Now, the plan today is a shorter day, 50 kilometres like we discussed last night. So we're going to go all the way down to Mayenne. I've tried calling the campsite, but there was no answer. So we're going to try again in a few minutes. Hopefully we'll be able to book that, because it is a weight off your mind. And today's a bank holiday and potentially very, very busy when it comes to people staying in campsites around France, especially with it being the weekend. People will potentially have gone away for the long weekend. So slight worry, but I'm sure we'll find somewhere. I always do.
Depuis Domfront, vous avez de la voie verte jusqu'à Torchamps.
Ouais.
Et à partir de Torchamps, vous avez 2 options.
Okay.
Soit les petites routes en passant par Saint-Frambourg.
Ah ouais, okay.
Cette option-là sera plus jolie. Par contre, à Saint-Frambourg, il faut savoir qu'il y a un gros événement aujourd'hui, une grosse fête.
Ah oui,
Donc ça sera un petit peu
qu'est-ce qui se
animé, mais
passe ?
ça peut être sympathique. C'est une fête qui célèbre les traditions rurales, les traditions de la campagne.
Ah oui, okay.
Donc il y aura la forge qui sera mise en route, il y aura un défilé de tracteurs.
Now this is a first for me on a cycle tour. I've just had to pay to actually continue cycling along the cycle track or the cycle route. €6, but it's with a good reason, and the reason is that there's some kind of festival taking place in the town of Saint-Frambourg called Les Fleuries d'Antan, and it's apparently old tractors, old cars, usual French kind of thing I would imagine. There'll be a bar, so opportunity to eat something, have a coffee. It's only 11:30, so it's a bit early for anything else, and we've got quite a few kilometres to cycle. So yeah, should be an interesting diversion for a few minutes or perhaps even an hour or so. just filled up our water bottles at the cemetery. Good place to fill your water bottles up if you can't find a tap. And, well, what do you think, Tim?
Well, I think it's a good example of serendipity in that if we hadn't wandered into the tourist office at Domfront, we wouldn't have known about this. And it was a slight diversion from the Vélo route to Mayenne.
But not la Vélo Francette. It is on the Vélo Francette route. In fact, the route goes straight through the middle of the town.
Okay. So the route deviates from the Vélo. So at the...
Well, I'm going to stop you there. This is la Vélo Francette. The thing is that the woman in the tourist office said that we had a choice.
Yeah.
Because it looks to me as though they've extended the ability for somebody to continue cycling on the disused railway line. So that's when there was these two alternatives, which don't actually show up on the website, but they did on her version of the map.
It did explain the multiple route that appear to be.
Yeah, but this is I think this is the original official one, and it's certainly signposted as such. So we would have come across it whether the woman had said it or not, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what do you think? It's this kind of slice of French life,
we were charged €6
isn't
to
it?
come in. I don't know whether if we'd chosen to take this route but didn't want to stay for the festival, then whether we'd still have been charged. But at the festival there were elderly agricultural vehicles, a load of classic cars, primarily French because, well, we're in France. Seen lots of, there's a Peugeot 504 convertible,
Yeah, there was a whole long
Citroen
stream of
Bijou's
them.
gone in, lots of Citroen DS's.
Yeah. And then lots of old tractors.
Yeah.
It's kind of a slice of French life, isn't it? That I don't know whether you find these in Britain or not anymore. You do in the Archers. This is the kind of thing that Linda Snell would organise.
We do get quite a few things in Somerset, various festivals where. So seeing tractors was like not quite a busman's holiday, but.
Well, my highlight was I bought 100 grams of caramel, which were very nice from a nice woman on her stall, and I've just scoffed the lot. So €4 well spent. Probably about the same amount of money it would cost me to buy 3 protein bars, I would imagine, from the supermarket. So I reckon that's money well spent. Yeah. So
I spent $4.50 on a 2-ball ice cream. So that filled a hole that I need.
Right. Okay.
I
well,
want anyway.
There's a sign just next to us saying Mayenne in that direction, and that's our next stop. And hopefully, I think. What do you reckon in terms of? I'm minded not to bother contacting the campsite, bearing in mind what the woman at the tourist office said in Domfront. She kind of had the same opinion as us until we arrived at that place of the day, and they wouldn't let us in.
Yeah. I mean, the impression also, I think the office was closed. When you phoned earlier, it did have quite limited opening hours.
Well, not really. It was open from 8:30 till midday and then 2 till whenever.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's just, I don't know, for whatever reason they weren't answering the phone.
Yeah.
That could be that they've got no space and they're fed up with saying, sorry, we've got no space.
It could be that, couldn't it?
Wouldn't be the first time. But we can try anyway. Yeah. Live fast, eh? So just a quick catch up on yesterday. The route after that fete, that festival, was through open countryside, really nice, and then it did return to the Greenway, to the disused railway line for about another 20 kilometres, and we arrived here in Mayenne at around, 5ish last night. I continued all the way to the end of the Greenway, but Tim was cycling a little bit behind, so he veered off earlier and managed to secure the campsite, and then texted me later that he'd done that, and I joined him here about, 15-20 minutes after he'd arrived. I did see the outskirts of Mayenne where there was a bridge. Didn't look the most inviting of places, but I dare say we'll probably venture in this morning to find out if that's the case. Nice campsite, Camping de Mayenne, think it's a municipal site, good facilities, right next to the river. However, perhaps you could sense a however coming. However, last night, after about an hour of some kids' game being played at high volume over a microphone, where it seemed to consist of people guessing what the next line was in a song, there was a film, an open-air film that they played. It went on for ages, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Oh my goodness, why, if you run a campsite, are you showing open-air films at that volume in the middle of the summer season? It was something, I think it was a Musketeers film, because I did hear a reference to D'Artagnan. There was certainly lots of fighting, a few horses in there, but my God, what a racket. Anyway, moving on, literally, today. In fact, we've booked and planned the next 3 days. So it's Saturday. Today, we're going to cycle down to Chateau something, that I've forgotten the name of, 70 kilometres. The day after, we're going to cycle down to, that Sunday, Angers. And we've booked a train from Angers down to Saumur for Sunday evening. And then Monday, we're going to take a day off in Saumur, staying 2 nights on the Camping Ile-Dauphard that I used to work at way back in the 1990s. But it's a very different place now than it was back then. So that's the plan. Cloudless sky, although the sun is yet to appear from the horizon. I think mainly because there's a bush in the way. But that's the plan for today. And hopefully tonight's campsite, no open air film. The usual breakfast, croissant and something called une pistole, which is a bit of bread with chocolate in it, very nice, for breakfast in Mayenne. And I'm delighted to say that we're not on a railway line. We are on a towpath. Bonjour. And I've just learnt a new word, the word for towpath, which is allage, because there was a bit of a deviation. Some walkers ahead. I'm just going to ping my pinger. Bonjour. Bonjour. Got some strange looks there, and a hola, I think, because of the amount of luggage I'm carrying. Right, yeah, back on a towpath, or rather on a towpath, an allage, and it is so nice to have a different way of travelling rather than on a disused railway line. Yesterday was a mixture, open countryside railway line. In terms of distance and ease of cycling, it's gradually downhill all the way on a great surface, so we should be in for a good couple of days of cycling in the sun. Also, perhaps after 5 days of being with Tim, interesting moment perhaps to reflect on what it's like cycling as two people rather than one. I'm not yet completely bought on the idea of it being a better way of travelling rather than as an individual, because I do like to make my own decisions, and I do feel as though so far I've been kind of taking the lead. I wish Tim was a bit more forthright, I think, in terms of his desires to do things, and basically just turning around to me and saying, no Andrew, we're not doing that, we're going to do this instead because this is far better. He does tend to acquiesce quite easily, which makes life good for me because basically I get what I want, but I do feel a bit guilty about it being the route and the cycle trip that basically is being dictated by me rather than Tim. So how can I politely encourage him to be a bit more forthright and basically tell me to get off, bonjour, when I need to be told to stop taking charge? Wow, this is just beautiful. An open meadow to my left. Although it's 10 o'clock, the sun is quite hazy. And then the river almost motionless behind a bank of trees on my right, and then on the far side of the river, it's not a very wide river, a steep incline, heavily wooded. This is just perfect, absolutely perfect. Until that is I get to Angers and I'm saying, get me off these towpaths, death by towpath. Right, Tim, we've arrived at Chateau Gontier.
Yeah.
About 70 kilometres, 70, no. What did you register?
About 81ish, but some of that would have been going into town for breakfast, and equally a little bit in Chateau Gontier for the shop.
Yeah, officially it was 70, officially it was 35 and 35, kind of a split between going from Mayenne to Laval and then Laval to Chateau Gontier. So, but we managed to add an extra 10 kilometres somewhere to that, so yeah, about 80 kilometres. Now, how have you found today in terms of the cycling?
Well, as 80 kilometre cycle rides go, it was a lot easier than other 80 kilometre cycle rides.
I think you wouldn't have been able to find an easier 80k than what we've just done.
I mean, we're following the river downstream. That said, it's not that you really notice it's going downhill, because it's kind of fairly horizontal with the introduction of the barrages that give you the lock gates.
You do, you don't notice it going downhill, but you notice that you're not going uphill.
Yeah.
Even a slight incline you notice, but going uphill, but when you're going downhill, okay, we might not have detected that we were going downhill, but you can definitely detect that you're not going uphill. And it was a very, very easy ride. Now, the thing that struck me was, basically we were following the towpath, and I learnt a new word today for the towpath that I've already forgotten. What was it? What was that word for towpath?
H-A-R...
Harlage. Harlage. Yeah, anyway. And we were following the towpath for, I would say, over 95% of the route, and the surface was identical all the way from Mayenne to where we are now, Chateau Gontier.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking to myself and comparing that with the experiences of cycling beside canals back home in Britain, certainly in West Yorkshire, where the surface, if you can cycle for, I don't know, 200 metres on the same surface, you're in luck. And invariably it's a pretty bad surface. It's not good. It's either ravaged with...
along the Oxford Canal from Cropredy about a week and a bit ago, and even running or walking, there were bits where it becomes so narrow and fallen into the canal. You could easily have fallen in.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't have taken a bike on that. But
this was a good 2 metre at least wide track of compacted gravel. It's just perfect for cycling on.
And wide enough for multiple people to be passing in both directions.
Yeah, and the fact that they've invested and they've made that surface like it is for stretching over 80 kilometres, probably more, because basically we're going to be continuing down the river tomorrow to Angers, and I dare say it's going to be exactly the same. High quality, really, it's just kind of wow. You know, you take your hats off to the French when they make a surface like that, because I really can't imagine that happening anywhere in Britain.
And it looks also that a lot of the communities that we pass through have stood to benefit from that. So there's a fair bit of joined up thinking going on here. There were businesses. There was a cafe we stopped at in one of the former lock house keeper cottages.
Yeah, and we could have stopped perhaps another 3 times at those lock keeper cafes, because there were a few after that. It is seen as a real...
And 1 or 2 of them had toilets as well, which I don't recall seeing that in many UK canals.
No, it is a real source of Well, they've identified it as a source of income in terms of tourism, and it's certainly working, because it was busy with cyclists.
Absolutely.
I mean, a good number doing what we're doing, with panniers and clearly having a tent on the back, but a lot of people who were doing it a little lighter, presumably staying in B&Bs or hotels along the way, or just day cyclists who had just enough stuff to kind of keep them occupied for a few hours.
Yeah.
Although
we saw
lots
one
of people,
recumbent with a trailer.
yes,
Actually, I came across another chap with 2 trailers. A large trailer that his dog was in,
yeah, right.
and then a trailer behind the front trailer.
Yeah. And lots of e-bikes. In fact, even tonight at Chateau Gontier, there's a good number of cycle tourists, but a good number of them have got e-bikes as well, which is interesting. It adds an extra dimension in terms of how to charge them, but the campsites seem quite amenable to people charging their batteries, don't they?
Oh.
Increasingly they're making that available. And so the plan for tomorrow is that we cycle to Angers. I would imagine it's going to be a shorter version of what we'd done today. I think, did we say it was 60 kilometres?
That rings a bell.
Yeah. So that's the plan. That's the plan for tomorrow. I'm tempted to say tomorrow. Why don't? Because we've got this train at 5. Is it 5:30?
I think it's that sort of time.
From Angers station. What we could do, I mean, we've been doing this increasingly, I think, over the week. We could cycle independently and just meet up in Angers. How would you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've both done a lot of cycle touring on our own before, haven't we?
Yeah, we're not going to get lost. And I think it will give us the freedom to just kind of do what we need to do when we want to do it. I dare say, even if we set off at slightly different times, I dare say we're going to bump into each other. But it'll just give us the freedom to kind of build our own day.
Yeah.
Stop where we want, as long as we make sure
Make it
that
the
we
train.
rendezvous
Yeah.
at that train station. Do you know which train station it is?
I have been to it before, but it was a couple of years ago.
It did have.
It'll be on the map.
It is, but it did specify
more than one.
Angers something.
Yes.
So presumably there's more than one station, but I'll make sure that you are aware of that.
Yeah.
And I have the tickets on my phone, so I need to be there, and you
Yeah.
need to be there. So if we say meet at 5 o'clock outside the station, and then we'll take it from there
Yeah.
and head off to Saumur.
Yeah.
What's been your impression of the towns we've visited today?
Of the towns we have looked at, Lavelle was, of the 3 major ones we looked at, Lavelle was the only one that seemed to have life in it. Whereas Mayenne, I'd expected more of that, but it's just seemed close up. You went through Mayenne on the way to the campsite and were somewhat underwhelmed by it. And
I don't know
didn't
why.
get the impression that changed much.
I mean, I don't know why. I was just expecting. Perhaps I associate it with mayonnaise, and I don't know if that's a correct association of not. It's spelt differently, isn't it? Mayonne, as opposed to anyway. But I was just expecting something really a lot different to what we found. It was okay. We went in this morning and we got breakfast in that square, and it was all right. It was fine. But Laval was really, I thought, was really nice, that main square. And then we come to Chateau Gontier. And you expect with a name like Chateau Gontier that it again is going to be some beautiful French town, but actually...
And there was a nice chateau on the hill. as
There
we approached,
was.
whether that is the chateau.
That could
of
be
which
the
it's
Chateau
named
Gontier,
after.
because that was in a striking position, that little building on the hill. But the town itself, I mean, it just looked... I turned right when I arrived at the end of the Greenway in the town centre, just to have a look in the town, what was listed as Centreville, and it looked like a ghost town. It looked abandoned. It wasn't that the shops were closed for Saturday afternoon. They'd been abandoned years ago. It was a strange, and you don't tend to find that in French towns and cities, which is strange.
No. And going back to Mayon, the painted bridge was a new one for me. So one of the bridges close to the centre of town in Mayon, they've painted the top stonework and the stonework on the inside that adjacent to the roadway. It's quite unique. I mean, and very ornately planted out with planters every 8 or 10 metres.
Yeah, I can't imagine you get that past the planning committee in your average British borough council. But it worked, didn't it? It was very pretty.
Yeah.
Very French. Yeah. But that said, Chateau Gontier campsite is great. It's quiet. There isn't touch wood, there isn't a open air cinema or children's entertainment going to be taking place early that will keep us up until 11 o'clock courtesy of their loudspeakers, like there was last night.
And we've recognised a few people from previous camp nights.
Have you?
Spanish lady.
Oh, is that? Ah.
And the lady who was in reception at the same time as us.
Yes.
I saw her in the Mayon.
I didn't realise that was a Spanish woman.
Oh, I recognised her tent from...
Right. Presumably she's headed into town for something to eat.
I recognised her tent from, what site was it? From Donfont.
Right, okay. Either that or she's listening to what we're saying and thinking, why are those two blokes talking about us? Talking about me. Right, okay, so that's the plan for tomorrow, Angers, and then a day off in Saumur.
Sounds like a plan.
It's now Sunday morning, and about 15 minutes ago I set off from the campsite, left him there to continue packing up and pulling down his tent. Had breakfast together, coffee, and he bought some eggs, so I had a couple of hard-boiled eggs, which is no bad thing because the deserted town of Chateau Gontier, or the abandoned town, or nearly abandoned town, didn't appear to have a boulangerie, so that's my breakfast for this morning. Tim seemed happy with my suggestion that we cycle independently and then just meet up at the end of the day, and I'm going to probably suggest we do that again when we set off from Saumur on Tuesday morning. If you remember, tonight and tomorrow we're camping at the Campanile-Dauphard on Saumur, or in Saumur, and we're going to take a day off cycling tomorrow, certainly long distance cycling. There's quite a few bits and pieces to do in Saumur, so it should be interesting revisiting. Bonjour! There's a chill in the air this morning. It's definitely feeling ever so slightly, I don't want to overemphasise this, but ever so slightly autumnal. My fingers are quite cold, and yesterday, or rather last night at the campsite, I did notice that some of the trees, most of their leaves were golden brown, yellow, preparing to fall for the winter. That said, the sun, yesterday it was a very hazy sun, very beautiful. You could see this round globe of orangeness in the sky, but today it's your more traditional summer sun. Can't really look at it, blazing down, and I suspect it's going to heat up considerably. But in terms of the cycling itself, I would imagine it's going to be a bit of a Groundhog Day in terms of the quality of the route, which has now returned to that fine gravel that I was cycling on yesterday. Very, very comfortable surface to cycle on, I have to say. Towpath maintenance people in Britain, take note. Bonjour. A few people out around and about, a few cyclists and quite a few runners. Bonjour. There's one of them. And yeah, I think I'll pause for lunch. This, if you look on the Vélo Francette website, we're doing 2 of the stages that they recommend, 30 kilometres to a place called Le Lion d'Angers, and then another slightly shorter stage to Angers itself. I'll pause for lunch and perhaps to explore in Le Lion d'Angers if it's worth exploring, and then I've arranged to meet up with Tim again at 5 o'clock this afternoon outside the train station to take our train down to Saumur on our day off. So that's the plan. Ooh. But again, this is just beautiful, nice, easy cycling, and long may it continue. Just had lunch outside the church in a little town called Le Lion d'Angers, and I'm now standing outside the Église Saint-Martin du Vertou in Le Lion d'Angers, and presumably you can hear that. The service is just ending, I think. People are beginning to come out. Even for a man like me with no religious bones in their body, it seems an apt place to have a bit of early lunch on a Sunday morning. Beautiful. Yesterday afternoon, cycling down to Angers was pretty much a continuation of the morning yesterday and also the previous day, cycling along the river. Very beautiful, very easy cycling. Perfect, really. Now we've moved on. We caught the train yesterday after a couple of hours. Well, I sat having a beer in the main square in Angers. Moved on and caught the train down to Saumur. Very, very busy train, both with passengers without bikes, but certainly passengers with bikes. But it was one of the trains that we didn't have to book our bikes onto. They do make a big thing on the SNCF app, reminding you you've got to look and check if you've got to book your bike, but it wasn't one of the bookable services. I don't know why, because it was really busy with bikes. And I was a bit worried that the train might set off before we got all our stuff off, but we didn't. Anyway, been for a run this morning, 10k run, didn't get a great time. But on the island where we're camping, the Ile d'Ophar, and then around Saumur itself. Now, I have history with Saumur. I worked here for 4 months back in, well, way back in 1993. God, that's 32 years ago. I was working on the campsite for Eurocamp, and I've been back several times since. The last time was in 2015 when I was cycling from Spain up to Norway. And I wrote in that book, Spain to Norway, how disappointed I was with what had happened. It just seemed a bit run down. But I have to say, the impression this morning of running round Saumur was that it is on the up. It looked very different, looked very smart, very lively, very colourful. And I'm now cycling over the bridge, and I'm about to go for a wander and hopefully meet up with Tim a bit later to see what Saumur is like in 2025. Okay, we're sitting in a restaurant in the middle of Saumur. We just had a really nice meal and we're thinking about where we're going to, because basically we've done about half of the trip, is that correct?
Yeah, maybe slightly further, but we're nearer to half than a third.
I was hoping we were nearer to 2/3 than a half.
Well, it's 260k-ish to La Rochelle.
But the whole route is 630,
yeah.
so
we are a bit over half.
we are more than halfway. So we're in Saumur, and the route, well, we've got 4 days in which to do it. So 4 days in which to do, how many did you say?
265.
265, so what's 265 divided by 4?
So we've got 41%
To
still to do.
Okay. And what's 265 divided by 4? As soon as you get your
That is
calculator.
66.
Right, okay.
And a quarter.
Well, that's pretty reasonable. I mean, that's less than probably with the average of what we've done so far.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, the plan is to get as far as, well, ideally, Cherbourg, which is 70, I think we worked out about 75 kilometres. There's a campsite there. In that case, it will bring it well down below 60 kilometres for the remainder of the...
Yeah, so 76.
76.3 kilometres,
to
yeah. Right, okay. And in terms of the route, I think it's going to continue to... It's not going to slavishly follow a river for the remainder of the way, but it does look as though it's following the valley bottom, because there's a river somewhere near.
Yeah, so there's no river immediately, but I think a bit later on, once we go past...
But if you look at the route there, it follows the valley bottom, because it's not the towpath, but it is following the valley bottom, which means it's going to be fairly flat.
Yeah, and it should be quite picturesque too. We go through some nice villages, towns.
Yeah. Now this is the bit that I actually did, albeit in the direction, back in 2015 from La Rochelle to Saumur. But at the time, the route was barely opened. It had literally opened that, and in fact, I think officially it hadn't opened when I rode it, although some of the signs were up. But for much of the route, I just did not follow the proper route. I went onto the main road, so I'm looking forward to actually following the proper route, albeit in the other direction. But we do have the get-out clause of the railway again, because it looks to me as though there's a railway that goes from Saumur all the way down to Niort.
Yes.
And then there's a railway that goes from Niort to La Rochelle. So
So for up to Niort, we can very easily duck out to the railway, but after Niort, the railway, which goes to La Rochelle, deviates or diverges from the route.
Yeah. And that, again, from memory, that final bit, following the canal to La Rochelle, the final bit, is not the most pleasant of rides. So I'm minded to say that we pencil that in.
I guess see how we are when we get there, but if we do get to La Rochelle early, it gives chance to explore Ile de Ré or La Rochelle.
Because the logistics are that if our ferry back to Britain is on the Bank Holiday Monday, which is a week today.
At 8 a.m. Yeah.
What, 8 a.m?
Yeah.
So we've got to be back in
St Malo.
St Malo by the
Sunday
evening
night.
of Sunday.
Yeah.
So if we arrive in La Rochelle on Friday of this week, that means we've got basically 2 days to make our way back on the TER trains all the way back
Yeah.
up to Saint Malo.
And in my experience of doing the journey from south of Nantes, like a Bordeaux direction to Nantes and then on to St Malo, I've never yet done that in one day. Looking at the trains, the trains to Nantes seemed to only exist in the afternoon, which then
Right.
didn't give enough time to get from Nantes to Rennes and then Rennes to St Malo. But we're giving ourselves time, aren't we?
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm quite happy say, taking 2 trains on the first day on Saturday
Yeah.
and 2 trains on Sunday in order to get us to Saint Malo.
Yeah. We should be able to get a direct train from La Rochelle to Nantes, but the next bit is normally 2 or 3 trains.
Yeah. We've just got to be careful that if those trains need booking for bikes, that yesterday's train didn't need booking, but I mean, for goodness sake, there were a billion bikes on that train. Why it wasn't a train that required booking, I do not know.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
Yeah.
And that's going to probably be a similar situation when we get to La Rochelle.
Yeah. And previously when I've done, I forget which one of those routes it was, probably the journey from Bordeaux to Nantes, I went via Intercité, which cost more, and the bike spot was €10, but I knew I had a bike spot. And that €10 plus a bit extra for the Intercité, that bought peace of mind.
Right. Do those trains still exist, intercity trains in France?
I don't know.
It seems to me, from recent experience, that it's either TGV,
Or TER.
obviously, which is not on the cards, or TER. Those are the two.
There's also the Ouistreham trains.
But aren't they TGVs?
I think some investigation might be required.
Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow, ideally, to Cherbourg. There's a campsite there. I think we can stop booking in advance our campsites, which is what we've been doing for the first week. I think, apart from that first night when that woman turned us away and said she didn't have any space whatsoever, albeit very politely, I think we could have turned up at every single campsite since then and just been given a space, even in Saumur where it's really busy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a problem.
I mean, in retrospect, I think she did us a favour in that it meant we did get to Donfont, we did get a bit more advanced in time. It would be nice to have bedded down then, though.
Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about that. That said, I remember going through and camping at the Camping Municipal in La Rochelle back in 2022, and I phoned up earlier in the day saying, can I book? Because somebody had told me it was going to be really busy, and they said, no, you can't, you just have to turn up, and at some point in the afternoon we just put full sign, and it was really, really busy. I think they even turned away cyclists, so we do need to be careful, and we do need to make sure that we turn up in La Rochelle in good time if we are planning on staying in the Camping Municipal.
Yeah, I look at the site I stayed at some years ago. That was a couple of miles out of La Rochelle, but that was fairly quiet.
Well, the Camping Municipal was great because
Yeah.
it was very close to the centre.
Where the station will be. And
Although it did have the disadvantage of, one, there was a fireworks display, and secondly, the people in the tent next to me at various points in the night were having very intimate relations, and very loud intimate relations. But
great.
let's hope that they're not there this year.
They've probably split it by now.
We've left Saumur and, well, it's Tuesday morning. It's quite overcast and a lot cooler than it has been really since we started the journey. And I don't mind that actually, for a day at least. It's quite nice cycling without being covered in factor 50. It's quite subdued and dark. And this is the kind of cycling that I really do like. Up until now we've had long stretches on disused railway lines and following the river, the Mayenne, down to Angers. But this is quite varied. It's a mixture of on-road, farm tracks, quiet country roads, and a few bits of off-road, but not in any kind of extreme way. Paths through woods that are easy to navigate on a bike. But we're passing through south of Saumur. We're now passing through lots of vineyards. And it's the variety, I suppose, more than anything else. Little villages dotted here and there. A few cyclists like that guy speeding past. Very few cars on the road. The sound in the distance of an aircraft up above, but also of the harvest. We've just seen some people harvesting big fat red grapes, or preparing to harvest them, and I think that noise in the distance is a more automated way of harvesting something. Don't know whether it's grapes or anything else. And we've also passed in the middle of a off-road track. There was about 7 or 8 people, men in high-vis jackets, spaced out about 20-30 metres apart, and it was La Chasse d'Anjou, the Anjou hunters. And I asked one of them what they were hunting, and they said sanglier, so wild boar is what they were after. They hadn't seen me this morning, and the chap I was speaking to was a man of few words, but he was hopeful that they would manage to see one, shoot it, and presumably eat it before the end of the day. Bonjour.
Vous voulez goûter?
J'ai déjà goûté.
Ah, vous avez déjà goûté. Vous avez
Et c'était très bien.
Vous avez goûté le fromage?
Oui, c'est ça.
Donc c'était la meule de Savoie.
Ah,
Qui est
oui,
affinée
ok.
12 mois en cave naturelle.
Ok. Alors Savoie, c'est pas de la région, ça.
Ah non, du tout.
Ouais.
C'est les Alpes.
Et ça, c'est du.
Et ça, c'est du carré de porc.
On a
Le
vu-
carré, c'est la pièce qui est dans les côtes de l'animal, les côtes secondes. C'est ces pièces-là.
Ouais, ça,
C'est
c'est
séché. Et on vient de l'enrober à l'ail des ours. Nous, on en trouve beaucoup dans nos montagnes.
Oh, ça, c'est délicieux.
Ça change, ouais.
Je peux prendre quelques tranches de ça
Alors, non, ça va se vendre en morceaux.
en morceaux.
Ouais, ça va se vendre en entier ou en moitié.
Non, ok.
Ou alors après, j'ai un petit morceau, là, si vous voulez.
Bon, je suis à vélo, alors c'est peut-être pas. Je pense plutôt pour mon pour mon déjeuner avec
Pour
un
déjeuner.
sandwich, mais bon.
Là, je vais pas avoir la trancheuse ni rien.
C'est dommage. Parce que ça, c'est. Oh là là.
Ça change, ouais.
Ça, c'est délicieux.
Après, ça craint rien, niveau conservation, si vous voulez le ramener en vélo. Ça, il n'y a pas besoin de frigo.
That was Montreuil-Bellay. I thought I knew the name, and when we came into the little town, it looked a bit dilapidated, run down. I thought, why do I know this name? And the reason is that there's a beautiful castle there, a beautiful chateau. It's got quite a spectacular setting just by the river. And we cycled into the town centre, village centre, next to the chateau, had a coffee, and I wandered around the market and had a chat with that chap who is not local. He was saying he was from Savoie, and he was selling his meat and cheese, but unfortunately he wouldn't sell me any of his meat, which was delicious. It was pork, and it was so sweet because he was selling blocks of it rather than individual slices. Now, as we did the other day, we've decided to cycle independently So Tim is somewhere behind me, probably not very far, and we're going to meet up at a campsite in Cherbourg that we've identified. We haven't actually booked this one in advance. All the previous ones after the experiences at the beginning of last week we booked in advance, but this one we haven't. We kind of reasoned that they've got plenty of space, and all the sites that we've been to so far have had plenty of space. It was just that one right at the beginning where we were turned away. Right, and I've kind of arrived at a fairly creepy place. It's by a lake, and it's a bit abandoned. That was a car going past. There are a few people dotted around. There's a few fishermen. There's some chalets behind a wood. Ooh, that makes it even more creepy, that sound of crows. But it's all a bit abandoned. There are some goats behind a fence just next to the toilets that I've just used. I went into the toilet. The door slammed shut. I thought, oh my goodness, hope I'm not locked in here forever. So, middle of the French countryside. It is a bit creepy. And I suppose I'm not used to cycling by myself. Not on this trip anyway. I took a wrong turning just shortly after coming out of Montreuil-Bellay and passed this farm, and there was a massive black dog in the farmhouse, just in front of the farmhouse. And I thought, ooh, don't move, and thank God it didn't. And then I passed another door and there was another dog, and it started barking. It set the other one off. Initially I thought, phew, I've got away with it, but then I realised I was going in the wrong direction, so I had to cycle past them again. But I survived. Bonjour! There's a cyclist. He's heading in the opposite direction, so better get back on the bike. Next stop, Troyes, and then about another 30 kilometres to Cherbourg, where I should be later this afternoon. I suspected Troyes was at the top of a hill because when I looked at the profile earlier, it was flat apart from right at the end, and there was a big, well, relatively steep bit on the profile. Now the route itself is blocked because there's been a landslip. And my goodness, I'm off the bike and I'm pushing. I defy anybody to be able to cycle a fully laden touring bike up this hill into the centre of Troyes. I've arrived in Troyes. What a bizarre place this is. It is, wow, it's very un-French because it just feels abandoned. There are some beautiful buildings. The church next to me has got an amazing facade, but street after street of abandoned shops. There are some businesses, there's a few bars and restaurants, and they seem to be doing good trade. Most towns like this that you stumble upon, they are really well maintained, pristine, and the tourists are, well, coming in their thousands. This could be one of those places, but it's hit hard times to say the least. They're doing bits of work here and there to try and rejuvenate the place, but goodness me. This is a creepy, abandoned town. That's kind of the theme for the day. I'm just about to cycle down. I think I've just seen a sign. I'm still on Vélo Francette. So I'm just going to cycle down this road. There are timber-framed houses on either side. That looks a little bit nicer. But goodness me. Cherbourg, 27.5 kilometres, that's my destination. I was hoping to get some lunch here, but I haven't even seen a boulangerie or a épicerie where I can buy anything from. Whoa. Creepy town. Merci. Merci.
Vous passez par Partenaire pour y aller?
On va... Où est-ce qu'on va maintenant? On va à Poitiers aujourd'hui. On va...
Vous descendez Partenaire? Ah non, vous allez Poitiers.
Oui, on va à Poitiers. Oui, pour prendre le train pour aller à Niort afin de compléter la route avant vendredi soir. Oui.
Bon, en tout cas, bon voyage.
Merci. Bon voyage à vous aussi.
Voilà.
Merci.
Bonjour. Au revoir.
Right. Okay, Tim, there's your coffee.
Oh, thank you, Andrew.
Change of plan. If your French is up to it, you probably understood what I just said. So we've got a change of plan. Now we need to be in La Rochelle by the end of Friday, and today is Wednesday morning. And I think you were... How would you describe your physical state yesterday?
Somewhat wrecked.
Right, okay, so instead of continuing down the Vélo Francette south, which I suspect is probably not the most interesting bit of the route, it's the bit that I did back in 2015, albeit in the other direction, and I didn't really stick to the route, I don't think. I took the roads. But anyway, so we're going to take a train from Poitiers down to Niort. Now, the reason why we can't take a train from where we are now, which is a place called Cherbourg. Is there a train station in Cherbourg?
I don't think there's any more.
There's a train line that goes all the way from, well, it looks as though it goes from Saumur down to Niort, but despite there being level crossings and things like that, which all look very modern, there appear to be no trains whatsoever. They're all buses. Perhaps it's just maintained as a freight route.
Yeah, certainly looking at the tracks, they weren't completely rusted, but they weren't as shiny as you often see them.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a mystery anyway. So in order to get a train further south, we've got to lurch over to Poitiers, which will be about a 3-4 hour ride, and then catch the train down to Niort. We've booked into a hotel in Niort, our first of the trip, and then I reckon we should be able then comfortably to get to La Rochelle. There are loads of campsites in the Marais Poitevin that we can hopefully use on Thursday, and then there's the Camping Municipal, hopefully, in La Rochelle on Friday night, before we start thinking about heading back up to Saint-Malo and the ferry home. Have you ever used cycle.travel?
I'm aware of it, but I've not looked at it for a while.
Because I just plugged in I thought it was just a UK thing, but I've just plugged in Poitiers from here, and it's given me a route to follow.
Okay. Is that far different from what we had initially?
No, I mean, it's basically from here straight across country, but it does, presumably the algorithm in cycle.travel keeps you away from anything that might be remotely unpleasant.
Yeah.
So
Sounds worth a shot.
yeah, I've never actually used it before. I don't know exactly how it works in terms of following the route, but we'll try and use that. One other thing I wanted to ask you about was the saddle,
Yeah,
because you've got a Brooks saddle there,
I have.
and I've always had a Brooks saddle on my touring bikes, and I swear by them. But when I was preparing the Koga to come on this trip, I noticed that my Brooks saddle, my B17,
Of which this is one.
was really sagging there in the middle, and however much I tightened the nut on the end, it wouldn't repair it. Have you ever had any problems with your B17?
No, I've got a B17 on both bikes, the Dawes Galaxy and this Surly Troll. Initially when I got this, I just swapped the saddles over and I thought, that's stupid. So I bought another saddle. I've done very little in terms of coating it with proof hide and
Yeah.
leather feeder and tensioning it. They do tend to shape to
Yeah.
oneself.
Well, mine was definitely sagging, so I was in all-terrain cycles in Bradford a few weeks ago, and there's an alternative Brooks which is not made out of leather. So
That's
presumably
like the Cambion, the C17.
yeah, the C17, which is what I'm using on this trip.
Yeah.
And you can probably hear it's a pretty solid thing. Now, when I bought this, I messaged you saying, I bought a C17, and you messaged back saying...
I tried one.
And...
I did not take to it. I tried a short ride on it. It really ate into my sit bones. But it just, I mean, every backside is different, and I didn't pursue it because it didn't. Well, I did a short ride with it. Maybe I should try it again. I did a short ride with it and worked on the basis that that doesn't conform to you like the leather saddle eventually will.
Yeah, I have to say I've found this really quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Very supportive. It doesn't sag one bit.
The reason I went for it was that I was aware that it's best practice not to leave your leather saddle out in the wet.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's try and get a saddle that works, that I don't care if it gets wet.
I wonder if that's the problem. Because back in 2022, when I had the saddle that I've just replaced, the one that's identical to yours, the black B17, there was some pretty torrential downpours, and I didn't protect it. I left the bike out. That was in the Alps.
Equally, I remember talking to a chap quite a few years ago to CTC birthday rides, who said he'd had his saddle for 50 years and kept it out, never protected it, never fed it, never watered it, and never stopped it getting wet.
Yeah. Anyway, but I'm pretty happy with my C17.
I think if you can do the mileage that we've done without severe pain, and comfort, well, that proves that one works for you.
And also, there's nothing to adjust, and you don't have to remember to wax the underside.
Yeah.
Which most people don't do anyway.
Yeah, I have done it with that one, just not recently.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hide feed that you're giving it, so it's a living thing.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe not living, but it's in the same way with leather car seats, you might feed them to keep them soft and supple.
I drive a Mini. I don't think it's got leather.
No.
I think you need to drive a Rover or a Rolls Royce.
My 20-year-old Audi has leather seats.
Yeah. I don't think my Mini does.
Well, the Mercedes I had a while ago had some fake leather, which is really nice, but you didn't need to feed it.
Yeah, I feel as though we're diverting away from cycle touring.
Yeah, we'll save that for a car podcast.
Yeah. Been cycling for about 20 kilometres now. As I mentioned earlier, we're not following the Vélo Francette for today. We're making our way over to Poitiers to take the train. And I've never used cycle.travel before, but I thought I'd plug in Cherbourg, where we were last night, and Poitiers, and it came up with a route. And so far it's been brilliant. It's taken us across country on good quality but bizarrely quiet roads, well maintained, very little traffic, beautiful scenery. It's quite open here, so the scenery you get is pretty vast. There's something Italian about the landscape. Little villages dotted here and there, or perhaps even the prairies of North America, these vast fields on either side of where we're cycling. But so far so good. I don't want to tempt fate. We've still got another 35 kilometres to go to Poitiers, so I hope it continues like this. But cycle.travel, I think at the Cycle Touring Festival a few years ago there was a talk by the chap who created cycle.travel. He's clearly doing a better job than Google, Last night coming into Cherbourg, trying to find the campsite, I thought, oh, I'll switch on Google Bike Directions. Of course, it sent me down a path that I couldn't cycle down. In fact, a path that disappeared. And even this morning, Google Directions to the local boulangerie in Cherbourg, we got to a point where there was a great long flight of stairs where you couldn't go down. So 0 marks to Google, top marks so far to cycle.travel. Download it. Unless a bit later I say it's been awful, but I don't think it will be. I've got high hopes. Poitiers, here we come. Well, that ride was successful. That was amazing.
It was. It's a definite a good route for cycle travel.
Cycle.travel, yeah. And I don't think we could have come up with a better route if we'd actually sat down and planned it ourselves.
No, I think we might have found a shorter route, but that would have been following various D roads for...
I don't think we could. I mean, I think, you know, and I mentioned earlier the fact that we always seem to be travelling in a southeast direction.
Yeah.
And I think that was a pretty direct route.
But we wouldn't have gone through that forest section if we planned it ourselves, would we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, now, we're at the station and we're going to go through the palaver now of getting our bikes on the train. This is train number 3, isn't it? I think, that we've taken. I think. Now, right, this isn't one where we actually have to hook them up. But I think
but we do need to make them
push
narrow.
push that up.
No, I don't think that's going to work.
This is a bit like Krypton Factor.
Yeah. This might be for luggage.
I think if you... Is there a lock somewhere? There's an instruction there, espace vélo. Hang on, just be careful you don't get your fingers trapped.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the other way, perhaps? No?
I think it's locking further near the pivot.
Or perhaps it just...
Yeah. I think what we need to do is to just take the luggage off and the bikes go side by side. Does that make sense?
What does it say there? Pour votre tranquillité et la sécurité de tous, merci de respecter ces quelques règles. Placez votre vélo dans le sens inverse du vélo précédent. So put your bike in the opposite direction of the one before it. Attachez votre vélo avec la sangle dans la partie centrale. And I think, right, okay, those stretch over.
Yeah, I mean that should stop the bikes from...
Yeah, I think we put our luggage on there.
Yeah.
I mean, the bikes can fit underneath, can't they, so? But normally what we've had to do on the other trains, and certainly the previous experience, is we've had to hook our bikes up on the roof. But by the looks of it, this looks like a slightly older TER train. Yeah, but still plenty of space. So you, I think, take that
strap
and hook it round your handlebars.
I would take that.
Oh no, well actually it says attachez votre vélo avec la sangle dans la partie centrale. So the seat post, presumably.
Yeah. What's notable is that this is all rubber coated for protection.
Yeah, well there you go. Right, and I put mine in the opposite way.
Well,
I mean, we're first on the train. I mean, this works fine, as if we don't get
and the train
10
starts from here, doesn't it? So yeah,
coming onto the.
It's in the heat of the moment. It could have all been a bit.
Yeah. Okay. That works
awesome.
fine. Okay. Successful. The echo gives it away a little bit. After 8 nights in the tent, we booked into a hotel in Niort last night, and it was very good timing because yesterday evening, and I suspect through the night, it absolutely threw it down. So we're dry and we're ready now for the final 2 bits of our journey to La Rochelle. Today should be relatively easy because we're only going to cycle, I think we worked it out, was it 30 kilometres? 40 kilometres, and then a slightly longer day on Friday, which should get us as far as La Rochelle, and we've identified a couple of campsites. La Rochelle is the hopefully municipal campsite, albeit a very busy site, so we need to get there in good time. And then tonight there are some campsites in the Marais Poitevin, which is a really pretty area. I remember it from 2015, so I'm looking forward to going through there. And the weather's looking okay. Looking out the window, it's a bit grey, but it should hopefully, according to the weather forecast, brighten up over the course of the weekend. Yesterday on the train, we spent a bit of time also just booking train tickets in order to get back to Saint-Malo. So we've got 2 trains on Saturday, which will take us to Rennes. We booked into a hotel in Rennes, and then finally on Sunday, we're going to catch the train from Rennes up to Saint-Malo, and that should get us back to the ferry for Monday morning when we're going to be sailing back to the UK. So that's the plan. Clearly I had a good night's sleep last night. It is amazing to actually have a pillow after 8 days in the tent where I've got my camping pillow, which basically is rubbish. And the problem I have with staying in hotels is that when you camping and you pack up your tent and you put everything in the panniers and you put everything back on the bike, all you need to do is turn around and look at the ground, and it's pretty obvious if you've forgotten anything. That's not the case in a hotel. I'm terrified that I'm going to leave something important behind, and I'm going to spend the next 5-10 minutes as I finally put the bits and pieces back into the panniers that I've actually got everything. Hopefully I won't leave anything here. If I do, I'll be back here later today to come and pick it up. But no, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna make sure I take everything with me. We've not got far to go today. I reckon, well, if we follow my suggestion from last night, we'll find a campsite at a place that I've forgotten the name of, but it's about 40 kilometres following the river west of Niort. I dare say it's a lot nearer if you followed a route that was direct, but we're following the river, and I don't know the name of the river, but we're following the river, and it kind of meanders backwards and forwards as you would expect it to, because it's in a fairly flat landscape. Now, just reflecting on the solo cycle touring and cycle touring with a friend, I have to say it's gone pretty well. I think we've managed to balance spending time together and having our own space. But the thing that I mentioned this earlier, the thing I do find a little bit uncomfortable about is making all the decisions, and I still feel as though I'm making all the decisions, or most of them. And Tim, because he's a very polite person, agrees and goes along with what I'm saying. So today, bonjour, cyclist dressed head to toe in fluorescent yellow there, like a hazmat suit. So today I'm just going to let Tim take the decisions, and we had breakfast in the covered market in Niort, and then I just waited outside. I thought, well, come on Tim, make a decision as to when we're going to set off and in what direction we're going to set off, and eventually he did, thank goodness. That might have been a subtle hint that I really want him to take charge, But let's see how we get on for the rest of the day. Tim, you're in charge, although you'll probably only find out when you listen to this much later. Hopefully you've seized the day and you've told me what to do, because I need a bit of instruction today. Merci. Yesterday's cycling was very easy, but very picturesque through the Marais Poitevin. We paused in the town of Coulomb. It's known as the Green Venice round here, La Venise Verte, and you can easily understand why. It's crisscrossed with waterways, lots of people on the water, punting, canoes, pleasure boats, but not very busy. And almost car-free. Coulomb itself was a small town, village, where there were very few cars, so it had a nice quiet atmosphere, a bit like you find when you go to Venice. You don't have that constant sound of the motor car, which you do in many places, unfortunately. So we wandered round, had a spot of lunch there, and then rejoined the Vélo Francette, continuing west. The original plan was to stop at a campsite in a small place called Damvix, but Tim had found an alternative a bit further on, which made sense because we still had plenty of time in the day. So we cycled another 10 kilometres or so and got to Campine le Petit Marais. Campine au Petit Marais it was called, that's right, which was a good campsite, very friendly. And we noticed that there was a chain link ferry across the water which we needed to take to get to the campsite. So I was a bit worried that if it wasn't working we might have to double back and retrace our steps to the bridge. So we did take a bridge rather than the ferry, and that meant that we got there guaranteed. And then this morning the ferry was working, and we hauled ourselves over the water back to the Vélo Francette, which was on the opposite side of the canal, river. Looks more like a canal, but was it a river originally? I do not know. Anyway, I think we're now in Charente-Maritime again. The campsite was in Vendée on the other side of the water, different département, but it's a flat landscape. We've got 35 kilometres to cycle to get to our final destination of La Rochelle. So we, hopefully, when we get there, we will have managed to do what we set out to do at the beginning of last week, which is get to La Rochelle by Friday the 22nd of August. Obviously we've had to cut out a couple of sections, short sections, and then we took the train instead, and we changed course to go to Poitiers in order to take a train. But I reckon from leaving Bayeux on the north coast and then cycling as far as Ouistreham, which wasn't on the Vélo Francette, we will have done roughly 650 kilometres, which is roughly the length of the Vélo Francette. So perhaps if we'd caught the ferry to Ouistreham to begin with, which was not a practical option. Bearing in mind Tim lives further west down in Somerset. It's worked out rather well. And we've just got a weekend of train travel left before we get back to Britain on Monday morning. But perhaps 30 kilometres to go this morning, and we'll be hopefully on the Campine Municipal in La Rochelle a place that I've stayed at before back in 2022 on my Grand Tour. There aren't many stretches of the European cycle network, whether they be Eurovelos or not, that I've actually cycled 3 times. In fact, on the continent itself, I can't think of another example apart from this one, which I'm now cycling for the 3rd time. It's the route that goes from La Rochelle up to Marin, and I first did it in that direction back in 2015 when I was cycling from Tarifa in Spain to Nordkapp in Norway, and I think I wrote at the time that it was quite a rough track. Bonjour. In 2022, so 3 years ago, when I was doing Le Grand Tour, I cycled in the other direction because I was following the Vélo Francette, and this section here between Marin and La Rochelle is both la Vélo Francette and la Vélo Francette. So I did it in the other direction from Marin to La Rochelle, and again, from memory, can't say I was that impressed by the quality of the ride. Very easy ride on flat surfaces, but a bit rough in places. But I'm back for a 3rd time. 2025, la Vélo Francette, and I've just set off from Marin. 25 kilometres in front of me is the town of La Rochelle, where we finish our ride. I'll give my judgment as to how good or bad the ride was in terms of comfort when we get there. It perhaps hasn't made life any more comfortable for me that when we were in Marin, I stopped at the bike shop and asked them to pump up my tyres, so they're now rock solid, which means that I'm going to feel every little bump and undulation along the way. Right, Tim, so we're on our final stretch.
Yes.
We're probably going to be in La Rochelle within, I don't know, within certainly the next 2 hours, probably a bit sooner than that. So what are your impressions of La Vélo Francette altogether?
Well, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I think things that strike me are the variety. We started at Ouistreham and we followed the canal through Caen, and we followed either former railway lines or canals. We've seen a good cross section of France. We've seen the flora and fauna vary. Most recently we've been seeing sunflower fields ready for harvest, which we didn't see in the north. It's difficult to compare the weather because that could be changing from day to day anyway, but
yeah, we've been pretty lucky with the weather when we basically had one storm, and that was when we bailed out into that hotel in Niort a couple of nights ago. What would be of the whole route, what would be your favourite bit?
that is a difficult one. Each day has had its new charms.
But if I said to you, look, you're going to go back and you're just going to do one section again, which one would you do?
It probably would be the bit starting at Samoa and heading south. How about you?
Well, I suppose if I came back, I would try and do that Swiss Normand bit, the bit that we actually inadvertently missed out because we, bonjour, because we.
Oh yes.
We weren't following the route. I'll probably go back and do that. And ironically, I actually really enjoyed that bit where we didn't follow that Vélo Francette and we cycled from Cherbourg to
To Poitiers.
Poitiers, yeah. I thought that was, perhaps because it was very different from the route. And it was across those wide open plains. I don't know, there was something
enjoyable.
a bit more adventurous about it perhaps. How about the bit that you would definitely avoid in future?
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I think,
There were one or two bits through the city centres that weren't so great, but by and large that was the exception, I think.
yeah, I don't mind towns and cities because it gives you an opportunity of kind of stocking up and seeing a bit of life. There were times a bit further north when we were following, especially the disused railway tracks, and I had this back in 2022 as well, when I was following the Vélo Francette from Paris to Mont Saint-Michel. There are long stretches where you are on a disused railway track, which is really easy cycling, and the gradients are never very steep because obviously a train can't go up a steep hill, but they do get a bit boring after a while.
They can become quite samey, can't they?
Yeah, so I was quite relieved when we started following the river, the Mayenne. Actually, that was a nice bit.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed that.
Well, I guess because the canals are still in use and each of the lock gates had an attendant, and several of those lock keepers' cottages had a pop-up cafe, didn't they?
Yeah, and just the fact that because you're following a river, it's an accusation as well as following a towpath of a canal can get a bit samey. Certainly that's the case if you follow the canalised Rhine from, for example, from Basel north towards Strasbourg. There are long stretches of that where you think, oh my goodness me, will this ever end?
Yeah.
But following a river, because it's twisty and turny, there's always kind of something interesting to see. And you don't miss out the towns. Railways were built not necessarily between town centre and town centre. Very often they would be built on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
So you don't actually go through the centre, whereas towns were built on rivers. So when you're following a river, you don't tend to miss out on the centre of town.
And you also tend to go through the nice bits of town where, as time went on, they built a nice stone bridge, and the village centre, the town centre buildings tend to be quite well put together, tend to look quite nice.
Yeah. In terms of accommodation, we've done mainly camping. By the time we get back to Britain, we'll have done 2 nights in hotels. That's the night in Niort, which was a very nice hotel, and we're also going to be staying in a hotel in Rennes on our way back north. But apart from that, it will all have been camping. Now, there's a slight caveat here that we've got 2 campsites still to go. Which was your most favourite and least favourite campsite?
There were some of the campsites that were really nice until the evening came along and you had the evening's entertainment, which did disrupt sleep somewhat.
Yes,
I think
so on that score, I'm going to nominate as my least favourite campsite the one where we had the seemingly, well, certainly all late evening showing of that Musketeer film, and that was in...
I'm just forgetting myself.
Can you remember the name of the town?
No.
I think that was Mayenne, wasn't it? I think.
It was, yes.
So that was my least favourite. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. My most favourite campsite...
D'enfant.
Yeah, I think it probably is in terms of... Because I like when you arrive at a campsite and they say, oh, just put your tent anywhere in that big area down there. I kind of internally groan when they give you a pitch. You know, if you're going to be in a big field with other people who are just with their bike or perhaps even walking and a tent, you're with your tribe of people. And I think it's at Domfront, apart from it only costing us €5, that we probably bumped into the most number of cycle tourists.
Yeah. There are quite a few Airvo. And the other thing is you can't necessarily judge from a price how good or otherwise a campsite will be for cycle touring.
True, but you can. The one at Domfront, where it is so ridiculously cheap, I mean, I don't know, they're barely covering their costs. It tells you something about their welcoming attitude to people who are travelling by bike. But yeah, there we go. And in terms of travelling, because right at the beginning, in fact the previous podcast, we talked about the potential challenges of cycling as two people rather than individually, bearing in mind that most of our experience prior to this has been individually. How we found the experience of travelling as two people?
I'd say generally positive. I mean, I suspect that, we haven't had a debrief about this, but I suspect that both of us will probably end up doing more cycling as solo. But for me, as a particularly bad French speaker, it's been absolutely wonderful having a translator with me. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
I mean, we haven't had too many shouting matches.
Well, we haven't had any.
Quite. I mean, it's still 2 days to go.
Yeah, give it time. Likewise, I mean, I think as we've progressed, we felt more comfortable about just cycling individually during the day.
Yeah.
And also to a certain extent, I mean, for example, last night you went off to the bar. I was happy to just sit there and continue eating my spaghetti and pesto by the tent. On the balance of things, and this is not a reflection on anything that's happened in the last 2 weeks, but I still am yet to be convinced. Travelling by yourself is still my preferred option, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think I'm fortunate that my wife doesn't seem to mind me going off for these trips, probably because it means she's not expected to do that herself. We spoke earlier about the difficulties of, or the benefits of having someone to just look after your bike for a minute whilst you go into the shop, go to the loo or whatever. We've both successfully managed to do that for the last N years. You can definitely see how, if you didn't at least get on with someone, how quickly it might grate. But the fact that we did get on, I think that's a tribute.
Yeah. Have you got what's the next journey? Have you got anything in mind? I know when we first discussed this earlier in the year, you were toying between going back to Shetland, both Shetney and Orkney that you hadn't visited, or Western Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, they're still on the list. I still think, like we were discussing yesterday, where actually it's so nice to be able to relatively rely on the weather in what we do. In coming south to France, in general the weather will be better.
Yeah, I don't think I could have, if when I came back to you originally and said, well, if you fancy somebody tagging along, if you said, well, I'm off up to Orkney or on the western coast of Ireland, I would have probably made excuses. Because I'm thinking, well, last year I was in Shetland and Orkney and the weather was, at times it was just bloody awful.
Because I'm not tied to school holidays, and going up in May for the Shetland trip, and then prior to that going to the Outer Hebrides.
Bonjour.
I was quite lucky with the weather, whereas I think when you went, you had quite a foul job.
Just been under a bridge, hence the dinging. Sorry, say that again?
I was saying that that when I did the Outer Hebrides can't remember what time of year it was. I was quite lucky with the weather in 2021.
Didn't you do it in September?
Yeah, I think I must have done. So I must have done it after you. Being restricted school holidays. And I was very, very lucky with the weather. I had only about one day that was a washout. And similarly for the Shetland trip last year, whereas I think you were unlucky with the weather for more days. More days.
Yeah, but I mean, Scotland's always going to be a bit hit and miss, isn't it? Anyway, so.
Yeah.
And anything outside the UK or Ireland?
I think that if I find myself able to do a long trip, as an example, perhaps as a first retirement trip, then maybe heading to Malta and then take the ferry to Sicily and Italy. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And maybe combining that with a rerun of the Venice to Munich cycle trail.
Right.
But that's a long-term one that probably won't be next year.
Isn't that the Vélo 7?
It could well be that there are two long routes that go to Italy.
Well, the Vélo 5, that's the one kind of I nominally followed back in 2010, although, there was nothing there to follow. But the Vélo 5 goes all the way down to Brindisi. It starts over on the west coast and then swaps over to the east coast gradually after Rome. But the Vélo 7, I think, does the opposite.
It starts in Malta.
Starts in I think now it does start in Malta,
Yeah. I think I would probably end up doing a hybrid route of combining both of those. Partly because there may be some people I visit in Brindisi. I suspect that those routes aren't as well developed as they are in France. In which case you just do bonjour.
Bonjour.
In which case you do cycle touring old school and plan your own routes.
Yeah, or you get on cycle.travel and you let that do the hard work, because it did a very good job.
And having tried that on the Airvo to Prato route, I was certainly impressed, as were you.
Bonjour. Right, so we've got about another 15 kilometres, I reckon, before La Rochelle. So let's hope the sun keeps shining.
And when we get to the water, stop.
Yes. Well, are you tempted to dive into the Atlantic for a swim? I'll take that as a no.
No, I'm not a great one for water.
Yeah.
I like looking at it.
Compared to 10 years ago, 2015, the route from La Rochelle to Marin is vastly improved. My memory of cycling this in this direction 3 years ago is kind of non-existent, which is a bit worrying. But it's really pretty good, especially very close to La Rochelle centre itself. And we're now 1.5 kilometres away from our final destination. This is very good cycling infrastructure.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a pristine surface.
I don't think this was here 3 years ago.
No, there's a lot I don't recognise from when I came up here in 2017.
Yeah. I'm assuming that the route finishes probably outside the tourist office.
I'm expecting to find a sign some point soon saying fin de Vélo Francette.
Yeah, well, perhaps they've got an equivalent of the one we found just within the first kilometre or so of the route back up in the north. Ah, right, I recognise that as the train station. That's where I caught the train back in 2022. Yeah, definitely. Quite an ornate building, and we'll be back there tomorrow in order to take the train initially up to Nantes. Right, this is definitely the middle of La Rochelle. The facade of the Gare SNCF is covered in scaffolding. Very ornate, beautiful building. Another sign is telling us to turn right in the direction of that Ferris wheel. Hopefully they're going to let us through. Merci, monsieur. Still following the cycle route. It's going to come to an abrupt end sometime soon, probably in the harbour area. My betting is next to the tourist office. Can't see the Atlantic Ocean yet, although I think it is in the distance there, because I can see the harbour and the mass of probably lots of very expensive yachts. Oh, and those are the towers, the famous towers of La Rochelle, the twin towers. Got another sign here for La Vélo Francette. Are we going to be let past? We are. Merci, monsieur. Parc à vélo. Have we reached the end of the path? Let's quickly check. Oh no, there's another sign telling us to turn right. And I can even spot one over there. Can you see that one over there?
Well, I can see the water now.
Is that, that's not for the Vélo Francette.
It might be.
According to the map, we have finished our journey. There we go.
Where's our commemorative plaque?
Welcome to La Rochelle. The Office de Tourism, there it is. Voila. There it is, the same sign made out of metal with letters cut into it that we saw back up in Ouistreham. La Vélo Francette, La Rochelle, Ouistreham. Our journey is over. Any final thoughts?
Well, we're back to the ocean. Not sure I want to go home yet. Shall we turn around?
Well, in fact, I can tell you we've done 38 according to my mechanical timer here, but the odometer says 670 kilometres, which actually makes rough sense. Bearing in mind we took a few bits out, the bit between Angers and Saumur, and then we shortened the bit between Cherbourg and Niort by going to Poitiers and taking the train, but we added on that bit at the top by going from Bayeux to Ouistreham in the first place. So yeah, 670 kilometres. I think the official distance is it 650, the official distance? I can't remember what we said. Oh, 630, it's there, look.
Oh, yeah.
630. So somehow we've managed to do 40 kilometres too many. So we've definitely cycled La Vélo Francette.
And some.
Yeah. We thought the fun was over, but it's only just started. But fun in inverted commas. We're in a train, on a train even. The first of 3 trains that we've got to get in order to get back to Saint-Malo for the ferry on Monday morning. 2 trains today, Saturday, from La Rochelle to Nantes, and we're currently sitting on that train. and then from Nantes to Rennes later this afternoon, and then tomorrow from Rennes to Saint-Malo. Now, not worried about tomorrow because we've ticked all the boxes for tomorrow. We've got our tickets, we've got our bike reservations, but when we were booking the first 2 trains, the ones for today, it didn't seem as though it was possible to book a reservation spot, but we should have done. So it's a bit touch and go as to whether we'll actually get to Rennes tonight. Fortunately, the train that we've just got on, by playing ignorant, I'm going to forget that I speak any French whatsoever, there was a young woman on the platform. In fact, there were quite a few people helping people on with their bikes. People kept turning up with their bikes, more and more people. They're the ones with the reservations. We didn't. But thankfully, she organised it with the train conductor to put us in the carriage right at the end where there are free spaces, but it's all a bit stressful. Tim, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling more relaxed now.
Yes.
We don't have the knowledge that we'll be getting to Rennes tonight, but we're on part 1 of a 2-part odyssey for today.
Yeah, it could be an odyssey. Have you thought about, we could cycle from Nantes to Rennes overnight.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
It wouldn't be too hot to do that.
Probably doable.
I did look, not that this...
Quick, type into Google, how far is it from to get from Nantes to Rennes in Google's bicycle option?
By bicycle, it's 130k.
From
Nantes to
Nantes
Rennes.
to Rennes? I mean, I'm not suggesting I want to do it, but that's not an impossibility, is it?
No.
I mean, we'll be basically arriving probably in the early hours of tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we would at least get that final train. That's probably the third option. The second option will be to hire a car.
Yeah, which we both looked at.
Although whether my bike would actually get into a car, yours dismantles.
Yeah. We don't need a huge car for that to do. I mean, we can use the pannier bags as packing. With the front wheel off, but both bikes, they will be...
Yeah.
Yes, mine does fold, but...
Yeah. Then again, it is Saturday afternoon. Are we going to find a car rental place open? Obviously, the preferred option is that when we arrive in Nantes, the people at the station and the conductor on the train is just as amenable, just as friendly, and just as nice as the one on the train from La Rochelle to Nantes.
That was quite touching how helpful they were, not just to us, because I don't think we're the only ones without a reservation.
She took pity on us, didn't she? So that's. I'm feeling more relaxed now that we do have other options. First option, ideally take the train. We've got a ticket. In fact, we've got a bike reservation, but the problem is, it's not for the train that we're actually booked on ourselves. It's for the later train. So if push comes to shove, one of us could at least travel legally with our bike if we bought a ticket for the later train.
Yeah.
One of us...
I mean, one advantage, obviously we try the first train at 5:44 p.m.
Yeah.
which has about 5 intermediate stops.
Yeah.
Or the second train, which is at 7:01, for which we have one bike spot booked.
Yeah.
That has no stops between there and Rennes.
Yeah.
So at worst, we hide a bike in the toilet.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, let's cross that hurdle when we come to it, and then we've got the second option of potentially hiring a car.
Yeah.
Although, would that be possible at 4 or 5 o'clock in an afternoon in?
That's pushing it in.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
I doubt it. And then that third option of cycling 130 kilometres overnight. Yes, silence. Right, there's an element of jeopardy about this. I'll let you reveal all, Tim. Did we arrive in Saint-Malo
This morning.
on time?
We did.
We did, by hook or by crook. We managed to get both of those trains yesterday on Saturday. Very, very nice staff at both La Rochelle and Nantes stations. Very, very helpful, despite the fact that we didn't have any reservations. They let us on and they found us space and they were brilliant, which meant that last night we were able to stay in the Hotel Ibis in Rennes, and then this morning we jumped on a train, and I'm delighted to say we are now in Saint-Malo, or rather very close to Saint-Malo, so in the end there was no jeopardy about it.
No.
We managed to find
And
it.
despite having reservations, not once were we asked to show that we did have them.
That's true, that's true. But there is a moral in the story here in terms of peace of mind, in terms of actually enjoying the trip. Today was far nicer because I knew that we'd ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a bit stressful, to say the least, and we were genuinely thinking we might have to hire a car, and I was genuinely thinking, is it possible to cycle 130 kilometres to Saint-Malo?
Yeah.
But how have you spent our final day on tour?
Well, we've both been for bike rides. You went quite a bit further than I did. I just went along the north coast, east of St Malo, only about 30k. I wandered through, on the way back, through the old part of, through the city walls. It was of course heaving with people. I did treat myself to an ice cream, so it was worthwhile for that.
Yeah, Saint-Malo is it is a really fascinating place. It was destroyed, well, not quite destroyed, but it was heavily damaged during the war, but they've rebuilt it. But they haven't rebuilt it as an identicative of what it was. They've rebuilt it kind of along a slightly different line, but it works, and it's just a really interesting place to visit. I kind of did what I should have done back in 2022 when I came to St Malo on my Grand Tour of France, and I took the ferry. I went down to the little ferry that goes across the estuary of the river. Got back to Dinard. I actually swam in the sea this morning in Dinard, and then went on a cycle which brought me all the way back to Saint Malo via the two sides of the estuary by following the Eurovelo for the Vélo Maritime. So that is it, as we look out upon very beautiful seaside scene. We can't see St Malo from here. I don't know, in fact, where is it?
It's behind you.
It's behind us, because we're in a kind of a little cove here where we just had a very, very nice seafood meal. So that has been episode 92 of the Cycling Europe podcast. Thank you, Tim, for taking part.
You're very welcome.
And you'll find more details about this particular escapade on the Cycling Europe website, of course, cyclingeurope.org. At some point there will be a film. I'll put all the video together and make a film, but that might not be until later in the autumn. If you'd like to support the podcast, then you can do that by visiting cyclingeurope.org/support, and if you'd like to contact the podcast, then visit cyclingeurope.org/contact. But from a beautiful scene here in or near St Malo, thank you for listening. Thank you for following our journey along the Vélo Francette, or as Tim insists on calling it, the Vélo Francette. But it is the Vélo Francette. Thank you for listening, and happy cycling.
Nickel.